HOA police tried to intimidate my wife. They didn't realize she's ex-military and still active. The calm before the storm. It was a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind where everyone knew each other, where families shared barbecues and kids played in the streets. That was until the HOA decided to tighten up community security. A few packages had gone missing a few blocks down, and suddenly, our peaceful little corner of the world was under siege. The HOA president, Carol, announced the formation of the Neighborhood Defense Unit, or NDU, because, of course, every small suburban community needs a volunteer militia. They handed out black polos with NDU embroidered on the back and clipboards to some of the most out-of-touch retirees I've ever met. They were given a modicum of authority, which, predictably, went to their heads. But no one was quite as enthusiastic as Todd, the self-appointed commander of this so-called NDU. Todd wasn't just a member of the unit. He saw himself as its protector, the sole guardian of law and order in our neighborhood. He didn't just patrol in a golf cart. He gave himself a full-blown sense of duty. One day, Todd took it upon himself to issue me a ticket for improper vehicle parking, because my car was parked slightly over the driveway curve, something we had been doing for years without issue. A tense confrontation. My wife, Emma, had just finished her morning jog when she spotted Todd and his little team rolling up to our driveway. Emma, a calm, level-headed woman, walked up to Todd, thinking it was just a minor misunderstanding. She politely explained that no rule prohibited her parking in that spot. Todd, puffing up his chest like a pigeon, shouted, "This is a violation of Section 3, Article B of the HOA Code." Emma, slightly amused, raised an eyebrow and said, "That's not a law, Todd. That's a suggestion written by Carol, probably after too much wine." But Todd wasn't having it. His face turned red, and he called for backup. Within minutes, 2 more members of the NDU, Mike and Jerry, appeared, looking like extras from a bad police drama, both holding clipboards like they were about to arrest someone. Things were escalating quickly, and I could feel it in the air. Then Todd, trying to assert dominance, reached into his waistband and pulled out a gun. A loaded Glock. He aimed it at Emma's chest. The world seemed to slow down. I froze, holding my coffee, unsure whether I should call 911 or just watch. But then I realized something Todd didn't know. Emma wasn't just some housewife in workout clothes. She was an ex-military officer, a trained tactical expert, and still on active duty. The power shift. Before Todd could even react, Emma moved. One swift motion. She twisted Todd's wrist, disarmed him, and flipped him over the hood of our car with such precision that he hit the gravel hard enough to knock the wind out of him. Mike and Jerry stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Todd groaned, clutching his wrist in pain. Emma calmly held his gun and his citation book, looking at Carol, who had run down the street in her pajamas. Carol started shouting about abuse of power, but Emma, unshaken, replied, "You put these wannabe cops in charge of the community. That's on you. And just for the record, I'm military police. You're lucky I don't arrest him under federal law." By now, neighbors had gathered, phones out, recording the entire scene. One kid whispered, "Is she a ninja or something?" While another older man who served in Vietnam muttered, "That's real military training." The neighborhood was stunned. Carol, as usual, tried to spin the incident in the HOA's favor, claiming Emma had used excessive force. The fallout. But when the police arrived and reviewed the ring footage, they quickly realized Todd had pulled the gun first. He was arrested. Todd's bruised ego and busted wrist became the talk of the neighborhood. The HOA tried to cover up the incident, but there was no escaping the truth. That night, a viral video titled "Neighborhood Hero Drops HOA Cop Like a Sack of Potatoes" spread like wildfire on social media. Emma was hailed as a hero. The following day, Carol and the HOA tried to backpedal, claiming Emma was the aggressor. But with video evidence, 3 camera angles, and 10 eyewitnesses, the truth couldn't be denied. Residents who once quietly followed the HOA's absurd rules were now speaking out, demanding change. People signed petitions. The tide was turning. The battle escalates. Instead of backing down, Carol doubled down. She sent out an email to the entire neighborhood, claiming Emma had abused her military training. But then Emma did something unexpected. She took action. At the next HOA meeting, Emma, with undeniable calmness, presented the full video of the incident. The room fell silent as everyone saw the truth unfold. Todd had pulled a gun over a minor parking issue. The residents were outraged, and Carol, realizing she had no control, saw her power crumbling. Emma walked up to the front, holding a stack of papers detailing the illegal activities of the HOA. "You put civilians in charge of enforcing laws that don't exist," Emma said coolly. "This is a federal offense, and you'll be held accountable." Victory and the ultimate revelation. The next day, the HOA sent out a letter accusing us of slander. Carol had hired a lawyer, but no one in the neighborhood was fooled. Soon, word got out that the sheriff's department had been investigating the HOA's misuse of funds and equipment. It turned out they had used community dues to buy illegal gear and firearms without authorization. Then, the unthinkable happened. Carol's property was seized in a federal investigation, and the HOA's board was disbanded. A new, reasonable board was formed, and Emma became a local legend. But the most significant moment came when the Department of Defense sent her a formal commendation for her actions. Her commanding officer called her a hero for showing tactical restraint and preventing violence. A neighborhood reborn. The HOA was finally dissolved. Carol resigned in disgrace, and the residents breathed a collective sigh of relief. No more fake security patrols, no more bogus rules. The community slowly returned to normal. Neighbors began holding real events, like barbecues and movie nights, and Emma, though still quiet, was always respected. More than any HOA president ever could have hoped to be. But one last thing happened before we truly moved on. A letter arrived from the Department of Defense, commending Emma's restraint and professionalism in the face of unjust civilian aggression. And the neighborhood? It had been forever changed, not just by the actions of one person, but by a community that had finally stood up for itself. Your thoughts? What do you think of the HOA's overreach in this story? Was Emma justified in her actions? How would you have handled the situation if you were in her shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on the power dynamics in relationships like this, and how far you think a person can be pushed before they snap.